Grace Lane adjusted the strap on her worn-out skates, their faded purple paint chipped away in places, and took a deep breath as she stepped onto the cracked concrete of the local skate park. The early afternoon sun cast long shadows across the ramps, rails, and half-pipes, where a small crowd had already gathered for the community skateboarding contest. The air buzzed with anticipation and the faint scent of asphalt warmed by the sun. Grace felt a mixture of nerves and excitement flutter in her stomach. This was her chance to prove something, not just to others, but to herself. She glanced around, noticing the groups clustered near the ramps. Most skaters sported the latest gear, customized boards, polished helmets, and brightly colored, expensive-looking skates. Grace's thrift store finds were a stark contrast. The scratched surfaces and faded laces on her skates marked her out instantly, and she could feel the weight of unseen judgments pressing in. But she told herself that skill mattered more than appearances. Near the edge of the park, Jenna leaned casually against a rail, laughing with her friends. Jenna exuded self-confidence, the kind that came from years of being recognized as one of the best in the local scene. Her skates gleamed, perfectly maintained and brand new, her posture relaxed but commanding attention. Grace caught her eye briefly, and something about Jenna's smirk made her heart tighten. When Grace checked in for the contest, Jenna sauntered over, her voice loud enough for nearby onlookers to hear. "You're seriously skating in those relics," she said, gesturing to Grace's thrift skates. "You're not going to last 2 tricks out here, honestly." A few chuckles followed. Grace felt eyes on her, some amused, some doubtful. She forced herself to meet Jenna's gaze, holding back the urge to bite back. Instead, she remained silent, the tension between them palpable, setting the stage for what was to come. The contest began with an electric charge in the air. Skaters took turns weaving through ramps, grinding rails, and launching into flips that sent the crowd into spontaneous cheers. Grace tried to steady her breathing, adjusting her thrift store skates as she waited for her turn. The worn laces felt tight against her ankles, but they'd supported her through tougher practice sessions. She refused to let appearances shake her resolve. Jenna was anywhere but idle. From her spot near the half-pipe, she kept her eyes locked on Grace, sometimes casting sharp glances that hinted at disdain. The whispers began soon afterward. Jenna moved closer to the edge of the platform and, loud enough for a circle of onlookers to hear, said, "Hey, thrift girl, those skates have more miles on them than this park does. Why don't you save us all some time and just walk away before you get embarrassed?" The circle of spectators snickered, a few nodding in agreement. Grace felt the warmth rise to her cheeks, the sting of humiliation settling in like an unwelcome weight in her chest. She swallowed hard, balancing on the toe joints of her skates as if her life depended on not faltering. The crowd's reaction felt like a verdict pronounced on her: she didn't belong. Desperately, Grace tried to push back the embarrassment, to remind herself why she was here: to skate, to have fun, to challenge herself. But Jenna wasn't finished. As Grace stepped toward the first ramp, Jenna's voice sliced through the murmurs again. "You do realize nobody thinks you're in this for the sport, right? You're only here to get laughed at." The words hit harder than any fall. Grace's hands clenched at her sides, nails digging faint crescents into her palms. Around her, some of the bystanders exchanged glances, a few with confused expressions, some faintly uneasy about the cruelty unfolding in front of them. But most shrank into amused observers, eager for the drama Jenna thrived on. Grace edged back, uncertainty creeping in. The doubt was a venom, whispering she should retreat, disappear, avoid the questions and mockery. The urge to abandon the contest grew stronger by the second, until someone, a small kid watching from the sidelines, called out softly, "You skate better than anyone here, I just know it." The brief kindness flickered in Grace's mind like a fragile flame. Still, Jenna remained a formidable barrier, not just physically but emotionally. As Grace tried to step away toward a quieter corner, Jenna smoothly shifted her position, blocking the path with a cocky grin. "Oh no, you're not going anywhere. You're going to skate, now. Or prove you're all talk? Come on, what's it going to be? Grace's heart slammed in her chest, every eye now fixing on her, the crowd's collective breath held in suspense. The expectation was crushing. She could feel Jenna's friends murmuring, amusement and cruelty mingling in their voices. This wasn't just about a contest anymore, it was about a public showdown, a test of pride that Grace didn't ask for but had no choice but to face. Jenna's smirk widened as the audience's anticipation swelled. Let's see if those thrift skates actually have any magic left, huh? The tension was almost unbearable. Grace felt as if she stood on the edge of a precipice, the weight of every mocking stare pressing in from all sides. The warmth of shame threatened to overwhelm her, and for a fleeting moment, the familiar comfort of taking a step back whispered seductively. But this moment was hers. The challenge was out in the open now, and the question hung heavy over the crowd: would Grace give in, or would she rise? Silence stretched across the skate park. The buzzing whispers faded into a thick stillness as everyone waited, breath bated, eyes trained on a girl and her thrift skates standing against the odds. The contest had become more than tricks and skill. It had become a quiet battle between doubt and determination. As Grace steadied herself, the first crack of a skateboard hitting wood echoed from the far side of the park. Time slowed, every heartbeat marked in her ears as if the whole world held its breath with her. Around her, the people were watching. Friends and strangers, critics and cheerleaders, all glued to the moment of choice. "What would you do if you were her?" someone whispered from the edge of the crowd. Grace's gaze briefly flicked to the worn laces of her skates, at the faded purple that had carried her through endless practice hours, the burns and scratches earned not from neglect but from dedication. This wasn't about the skates or the mockery. It was about everything those skates symbolized: persistence, grit, and a quiet refusal to be defined by appearances. The heavy silence pressed down again, thicker than before. Jenna's smug satisfaction was almost painful to witness. She thought she had won without even stepping a wheel onto the ramps. But Grace Lane, with a steady breath and a heart beating faster than ever, refused to fold. The trap was set, the challenge clear, and now it was Grace's moment to show who she really was. The crowd waited, breaths held, eyes wide. The conundrum lingered like a suspended truth. Could Grace rise above the taunts and prove everyone wrong? Would she turn and walk away to save her pride, or stand tall and skate through the sea of doubt? Jenna's voice sliced through the quiet again, sharp as a blade. "Come on, then. Show us something." It was a command, a provocation, and an invitation all at once. The skatepark held its breath, every eye fixed on Grace Lane, and the worn thrift skates that might just tell a story nobody expected. For a moment, Grace just stood there, the weight of the crowd's gaze pressing down like a heavy fog. Jenna's taunting words echoed in her ears, but somewhere deep inside, something shifted. The knot of anxiety and self-doubt that had tangled in her chest began to unravel, replaced by a quiet, growing determination. The worn thrift skates on her feet had carried her through years of practice, countless scrapes and falls, and countless days spent chasing a dream only she fully understood. Today, they would take her higher. With a slow, deliberate breath, Grace flexed her knees and pushed off from the cracked concrete. The sharp wheels hummed beneath her as she glided toward the first ramp, every muscle primed for the run she'd imagined 1,000 times in the silence of early mornings and empty parks. The world tilted briefly as she launched into the air, a well-practiced flick of the board beneath her feet guiding her into a complex aerial flip she had perfected during late-night practices just before dawn. The crowd's reaction was instantaneous. A collective gasp rippled through the spectators as Grace spun effortlessly midair, her body balancing on the knife's edge between gravity and flight. Time slowed. The trajectory was precise, the landing perfect. She rolled down the ramp without a hint of waver, her thrift skates clutching the surface with uncanny grip and control. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the skatepark erupted. Cheers, whistles, and applause echoed off the concrete, drowning out even Jenna's stunned gasp. Faces that had been skeptical, mocking moments before, now blurred into smiles and wide eyes. Some of the younger kids jumped up and down with exuberance, while the older skaters exchanged amazed glances. Grace's heart surged as she coasted to a stop, panting but beaming, the sting of embarrassment melting into the warmth of triumph. Jenna's confident smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of disbelief. Her friends stammered, struggling to mask their surprise as the cool veneer of arrogance cracked. One of them muttered something about beginner's luck, but their words fell flat amid the growing chorus of praise directed at Grace. The unexpected victory in that single trick had shifted the energy of the contest, no longer a simple display of bravado, but a celebration of skill and perseverance. Grace felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The whispers of doubt had turned into questions, curious, respectful, eager. What else could she do? How much had the crowd underestimated her because of a pair of old skates? Among the spectators, a few voices rose to acknowledge how wrong they'd been in their first judgments. "I never thought she'd pull that off," said a man near the side, shaking his head in admiration. Nearby, a woman nodded, "She's got serious talent, should have known better than to judge by skates alone." Even Jenna's closest followers looked uneasy. The eyebrow raises and exchanged glances said more than words. Their confidence was shaken, their certainty cracked by Grace's performance. Jenna herself remained silent for a moment that stretched awkwardly, before forcing a chuckle that lacked its usual edge. "No way. Must have been a fluke," she said, eyes narrowing as she looked Grace up and down, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to admit defeat. Grace didn't respond with words. She merely smiled, her cheeks flushed with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She knew this was just the beginning, not the end, of what she had to prove. But there was something deeply satisfying in that moment, the realization that the worn thrift skates on her feet didn't define her limits. Her skill and passion did. Encouraged by the unexpected cheers, Grace prepared for her next run. As she stepped back onto her board, her mind raced through the tricks she'd practiced, determined to push even further. The challenge Jenna had set had ignited something fierce and focused inside her. Meanwhile, Jenna's demeanor shifted subtly but noticeably. No longer the brash, dismissive antagonist, she watched with an almost grudging respect. Her earlier taunts had lost their bite, replaced by a realization that Grace was more than just a target for mockery. The other competitors, too, seemed to reconsider their assumptions. Whispers circulated, "Did you see that? She's got moves, real ones. Guess it's not about the gear, after all." The crowd's admiration was contagious, seeping into the fabric of the contest, changing expectations. For Grace, the applause was a balm, healing the bruises left by Jenna's ridicule. She felt the doubts and nervousness dissolve as she found her rhythm, her balance, her confidence growing with every trick landed. Behind her, Jenna's smirk had faded into a tight-lipped expression of quiet contemplation. She caught herself watching Grace with something like awe, a recognition of talent that she hadn't expected to fear. It was the subtle shift in power that made the moment electric, setting the stage for a contest transformed. As Grace completed her second run flawlessly, another daring trick executed with precision, many in the crowd erupted once again. Her success had sparked a shift in how everyone saw her, no longer just a girl in thrift skates, but a competitor, a force to be reckoned with. Jenna stepped forward, the crowd parting slightly to give them room. Her voice was low but clear, "All right, Grace. Didn't expect that from you. Looks like you earned your spot here." The admission hung in the air, charged and unexpected. Grace looked up at Jenna, meeting her gaze squarely. For the first time, she felt the space between them shrink, not in conflict, but in mutual acknowledgement. She nodded softly. The skate park seemed to breathe again, the tension replaced by something warmer, respect forged in the heat of competition rather than cruelty or mockery. Around them, the crowd began to disperse, conversations buzzing with excitement about the surprising turns of the contest. The seeds of admiration and newfound respect had been planted, and Grace could feel their roots beginning to take hold. As she laced her skates tighter, the realization settled in fully. The gold-winning trick was more than just a perfect move. It was a moment that challenged assumptions, broke down barriers, and changed the way she, and everyone else, saw what was possible. She glanced once more at Jenna, who gave an almost imperceptible nod before turning away, her swagger slightly diminished but not defeated. Grace's smile widened. Today, she had skated beyond expectations, beyond doubt, and into something much bigger than a contest. She had shown herself, and the world, that true skill and heart couldn't be judged by the condition of a pair of skates. And in that moment, standing beneath the sunlit sky, surrounded by clapping voices and wide eyes, Grace Lane knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the crowd began to disperse and the sun dipped lower in the afternoon sky, Grace found a quiet corner of the skatepark to catch her breath. The buzz of excitement still hummed faintly in the air, punctuated by distant laughter and the rolling wheels of skaters finishing their runs. Her heart still pounded, but beneath the adrenaline was a calm sense of belonging she'd never quite felt before. A few moments passed before a familiar voice called her over. It was Marcus, an old friend from the local skating community, his face bright with genuine admiration. "Grace, that was incredible," he said, offering a fist bump. "You've kept all this skill hidden for how long? Why the thrift skates, though? You could have had the best gear." Grace smiled softly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I've been traveling the past year," she began, "doing volunteer work in different countries. Helping out wherever I could, teaching kids to skate, working at community centers. The thrift skates are what I had with me, and honestly, I like knowing I can skate without relying on shiny gear. I wanted to come back grounded, remind myself why I started skating in the first place." Marcus nodded, impressed. "That's why you skate with such heart. It's not about the gear, it's you." The words felt like a balm, echoing the quiet strength Grace had carried inside her all along. Her story, one spelled out in years of disciplined practice, countless hours balancing on boards and meeting the sun before the city woke, was not something chiseled in gold trophies or brand new equipment but forged in perseverance and passion. She thought about the way Jenna had looked at her, first with disdain, then disbelief, and finally a reluctant respect. The arrogance Grace had faced was a mask, concealing a girl who found her identity in the status granted by gear and public approval. But Grace was different. Her journey had been quieter, but no less meaningful. When she had first signed up for the contest, she wanted only to reconnect with the skate community, and maybe, secretly, to remind herself that she belonged. The thrift skates, she reflected, were a symbol of that. They told a story of resilience and humility, a way to stay true when the flashy world around her seemed intent on judging by appearances. A few more familiar faces approached, eager to congratulate her and hear about her travels. Through their questions and admiration, her identity grew clearer, not just as a competitor, but as someone who had woven together life experiences and skating into something uniquely her own. As twilight deepened, Grace felt a growing anticipation for the next stage of the contest. The final round loomed, a test not just of skill but of everything she had come to embody. She still remembered the sharp sting of Jenna's initial mockery, but now it felt like a distant echo in the glow of her progress. Deep inside, a quiet fire burned. Grace knew that her story was not about proving others wrong, it was about proving herself right. Every scraped knee and every moment spent skating in thrift store finds was a chapter in a narrative built on determination, creativity, and heart. She laced her skates with care, every pull of the laces grounding her in that truth. The crowd would be watching again, but this time, Grace was ready to skate not just with skill but with confidence born from experience and clarity of purpose. Jenna watched from across the park, now quieter, her usual sharp edges softened by a new understanding. Grace realized they were entering uncharted territory, no longer adversaries in a battle of mockery, but competitors engaged in a mutual challenge that demanded respect. With the final round beginning, the park's energy transformed into something electric yet warm, a shared celebration of talent and spirit. Grace's story had moved beyond thrift skates and skepticism. It was now a story of resilience rewarded and barriers broken. In that golden light, with worn skates under her feet and the cheers of the crowd urging her forward, Grace Lane stepped back onto the ramp, ready to glide into her destiny with a heart steady and sure. The final round was a different arena altogether. The crowd had grown to fill every corner of the skatepark, buzzing with excitement and newfound respect for Grace. The sun was dipping low, casting a warm, amber glow over the ramps and rails. Grace could feel the weight of expectation, not as a burden, but as a current pushing her forward. Every eye was on her, and this time, the whispers about her thrift skates seemed to have vanished, replaced by nods of encouragement and anticipation. Jenna stood nearby, quieter now, her earlier bravado replaced by a more measured presence. She watched Grace with an almost grudging respect that hadn't been there before. The earlier smirks and jeers had given way to a more complex mixture of emotions: surprise, reflection, and perhaps even a hint of admiration. Throughout the contest, Jenna had clung to her image, the confident queen of the skatepark, but Grace's performance had unsettled that carefully maintained facade. When Grace finally took her place at the start of the ramp for her final run, a hush fell over the crowd. She crouched low, muscles coiled, eyes focused. The worn thrift skates felt like extensions of her, scarred, tested, and unwavering. She pushed off, gathering speed, letting the rhythm of the skatepark blend into the beat of her racing heart. What happened next was nothing short of breathtaking. Grace moved with fluid precision, weaving through the course with confidence and grace. She executed each trick with a blend of technical skill and creative flair that dazzled the crowd. Then, with a breath-catching moment of daring, she launched into a soaring flip that seemed to suspend her in air forever. The landing was flawless, the crowd erupting into thunderous cheers. As she slowed to a stop and raised her arms in victory, the applause washing over her like a tide, Grace's eyes met Jenna's. The tension between them had melted into something softer, an unspoken acknowledgement of shared passion and respect. In the days that followed, the aftershocks of the contest rippled through the local skating community. Jenna found herself facing unexpected consequences. The outspoken contest organizers, who had initially supported Jenna's sharp-edged confidence, now called her aside to address her behavior. They emphasized the importance of sportsmanship and respect, reminding her that mocking competitors based on gear or appearance was unacceptable. Jenna listened, her usual defenses less sturdy than before. She realized that the way she had acted toward Grace reflected poorly not only on her but on the spirit of the contest itself. The reprimand was firm, a formal warning accompanied by a request that she publicly acknowledge Grace's skill and conduct herself with greater humility in future competitions. Faced with the truth of her attitude and its repercussions, Jenna surprised some by offering a genuine apology. She reached out to Grace privately, wanting to make amends for the earlier cruelty. Grace, who had no appetite for grudges, accepted the gesture with grace and kindness. Their exchange was brief but sincere, opening the door for a more respectful relationship going forward. Grace's vindication extended beyond Jenna's contrition. The community rallied around her, celebrating not just the gold-winning trick or the unexpected victories but the story of determination and character behind it all. She was invited to local workshops to mentor younger skaters, sharing her journey and inspiring others to value passion over appearances. As Grace stood once more on the smooth concrete, skates laced tightly, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The contest had become more than a competition, it was a statement that skill, heart, and perseverance transcended the superficial judgments that too often clouded people's perceptions. Her smile was genuine and steady when she addressed a small group gathered around her after a practice session. "It's not about the gear you wear," she said. "It's about the love you have for what you do, and the effort you put into it. No matter where you start or what others say, if you keep pushing, you'll find your place." The story of Grace Lane spread, resonating with many who had ever felt overlooked or underestimated. It sparked conversations about kindness, humility, and the true spirit of competition. To those who witnessed her journey, the question lingered: What would you have done if faced with the same challenge? Would you have let mockery stop you, or used it to fuel your fire? Grace hoped her story would encourage others to believe in themselves despite the odds, to skate through doubt and into their own light. And to everyone who heard this tale, she left a simple invitation: share your thoughts, your own stories of resilience, and remember, sometimes, the greatest victories come on the wheels of worn thrift skates. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you in the next story.